Good morning to you on this Thursday morning. It's the 26th of June, and you have joined us on the Fifth Connection, where we take the time to talk through the storyline of the book of Philippians. It's a letter that's written to followers of the way, Christian individuals in the assembly at Philippi. It's a both and, because the corporate community is made up of individuals. There's corporate solidarity, and the thrust of the story has to do with mindfulness. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And the writer is going to continue, and he's Paul, he's going to continue talking through the importance of dying to live. Not just dying to think, because you don't think yourself into a new way of being. As someone has said, you need to live yourself into a new way of thinking. So when the thinking is right, it's amazing what embodiment takes place, because thinking is embodied. You don't think outside of this body in which you and I have taken up residence in. So the writer is going to talk about the importance of connecting. He does that in chapter 1, and he does it very clearly, as you see in chapter 1, because relationality is what inspires connections. And now in chapter 4, he's going to talk about how that relationality has great benefits. Connectivity has great benefits to it, because mindfulness is extended in the believing community as more and more people participate in it. It's about participation. Cognition is about participatory involvement, not only multi-perspectivity, where each one brings in their perspective to the table in the context of community. But he's going to start to talk about, in verse number 10, the importance now of capacity as we reflect on relationships. Because there was some kind of war going on in verse 2 and verse 3 between two women, the impact of which is felt throughout the rest of the chapter. And Paul says, listen, micro difficulties have macro impact when they are not dealt with properly. When we attend properly, when we are mindful in the proper way, in the correct way, it's amazing what starts to happen in our lives. We see things for what they are. And so in verse number 10, Paul is going to talk about his elation. He says, I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at the last you have revived your concern for me. You've done it at length. You've revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am, therewith or therein, to be content. He experiences elation for their concern for one another versus the over concern which they can have, according to verse 6. Be anxious for nothing. Over concern is what paralyzes us, but balanced concern for fragmented disorientation, when lives come apart and when there's great need. He says, I have concern. I'm greatly elated when I see your concern for one another. when you are searching for ways to meet needs, because there is fragmented disorientation. Because what the peace of God does relationally, it reorients fragmentation. It puts things together in their proper place and in their proper perspective. So I'm not speaking from egoic attachment here. I'm not speaking from egoic need in verse 11. Since I am learning, or I have learned contentment, irrespective of what life throws at me. Now listen to that line. Contentment in spite of. We normally talk about contentment when, contentment if, or contentment because. Paul says, in whatever situation I am, I'm content, because contentment is something that you learn in the ebb and flow of reality. What's that secret to contentment? Well, he's going to raise it in the next line. He says, I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of having little and the secret of having much. I have learned the secret. What's the secret? Well, the secret is going to be revealed now in the text. Because coming up from chapter 3 verse 10, remember? That I may know him, Paul says. In the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable to his death. Paul is talking about this fractal secret, this secret that has to do with life out of death, that has to do with dying to rise. You see, death and resurrection is what permeates and saturates life and living. But we're too thick, too dull, too slow to see it. It's the fractal way. All of life is made up of this singular principle that life springs out of death. Order comes out of chaos. It's the yin and the yang. Inside the yin and the yang, if you know the symbol, there's a dot, and that dot is either a smidgen of order in the midst of disorder, or a smidgen of chaos in the midst of order. Dying to rise is the secret. I've learned that secret in the context of reality. That is why, verse 13, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Now, this verse has very, very wide and deep applications. It has wide capacity. This experience of learning this fractal of dying to live and dying to think and dying to rise comes through the fact that I understand that my locus of authority is right inside of me. Colossians 1:27 is one of the clearest passages on that. It's Christ in you. That's the hope of glory. Christ in you. We talk so little about that, even though the overwhelming evidence in the Pauline literature is our participation in Christ, our unitive awareness inside of him in whom we live and move and have our being. But here it is Christ who strengthens us. The word is in strengthening. He's inside of us, and he unleashes from inside of us. The experiences Paul talks about here comes through the internal locus of authority. Christ in me. He does not give me power separate from himself, but he gives me himself. It is he himself inside of me that empowers me. I can do. It's Nike with a big rider to it. It's Nike with a heavy, heavy footnote to it. I can do all things. But here's the killer. Through him who strengthens me. And in our next series of talks, we're going to talk about that locus of authority that's not only outside of us, but shifts internally. He's in me doing his great work. He works in me and then through me as an instrument of his grace. Yet Paul says, it was kind of you to share my trouble. The experiences of abundance and little, of hunger and thirst, and having much and more than enough. I've learned that secret. And it was kind of you to share in my dying to rise experience, because that is what sharing is all about. We share in each other's trouble. We share in each other's dying to rise. We die together, we rise together. That's why we need to be so in tune with where people are, with where my partner is, with where my kids are positioned and postured, so that it is in dying to rise, this dying to rise experience, searching for opportunities to meet people's needs, dying with them in it and rising together with them out of it. See, that's the picture. The cross and the empty tomb are not just a Christian meme. They're not just symbols. They are much more than that. They are the warp and woof. Listen to me now. They are the warp and woof of life and living. Because unless you understand this secret that is now revealed, because you have to live it, you have to live your way into thinking anew. You just don't think your way into a new way of being. You live your way into a new way of thinking. It's Christ in me doing his best thing. Not that I seek. That's verse 17. But verse 15. And you Philippians yourselves know that in the beginning of the gospel, when I left Macedonia, no church entered into partnership with me in giving and receiving except you only. You were the ones who were on the lookout for opportunities to serve. As an assembly, our dispositional knowledge is composed of our efforts of giving and receiving. Paul was postured here to receive, not to be egoically proud and say, oh no, I don't need anything. You know how some of us respond when we are asked in a prayer meeting, for example, what are your needs that we need to pray for? Oh no, I don't have any. How egoic can you get? Or I only have unspoken requests, so I don't have anything to share. I grew up in a context like that where when you went around the room with the young people, they said, no, I have an unspoken request. Yeah, and we can pray generally for each other, but how do we know what to pray for? Except there is sharing, not skinnering, sharing. But you, the churches, this church in Macedonia, verse 16 says, even at Thessalonica, you sent me help for my needs once and again. At Thessalonica, they were a living example of this several times. They sent wherewithal to meet Paul's needs. He says, I didn't seek the gift, but I seek the fruit that increases to your credit. You see, it's not the gesture that's in the forefront, but the effect of the gesture that increases your serve. Can I repeat that? It's the effect of what you do in regards to meeting needs that increases your reach, it increases your serve. He says, I seek the fruit that increases to your credit. It's more empowering for you, possibly, than it is for me. Yeah, you're meeting my need. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. But you are actually learning through this to extend your reach, to increase your serve. How are you increasing your serve this morning? Are you extending your reach because you're on the lookout to meet the needs of your partner, the needs of your family, the needs of your children, the needs of the saints? Looking out for opportunities, going out in the rain to take some food to someone in need. Not saying, oh, it's too wet. My feet are going to get wet. Oh, we are such sissies, aren't we? But doing the hard thing, personal voluntary sacrifice is what it is all about. For the sake of, not me, myself, and I, for the sake of others. That's what Paul is talking about here. You're going to have opportunities today to touch somebody's life qualitatively. Will you be awake to that opportunity? Men and women, lives life on the balls of your feet. Be forward leaning with extended excitement for what God is about to do next. And the need is going to bring your way and make you cognizant of meeting. Be on the lookout for that today. I trust that you will enjoy your walk with God this day. Goodbye for now.